Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Monday, March 15th. These streams, if I can do them a little bit later, would be ideal. Like, in the United States, the time change sprung forward or jumped back or whatever, and that's not really affecting me so much. But I have noticed that of the couple of streams that I've been paying attention to, as far as how many views I get, when I end up waking up and streaming around 5 in the evening, that does seem to get me more views. And that was the way I was streaming before, and YouTube basically lied to me and told me that I should stream earlier, that way notifications get released. So I guess the question is, the best combination there would be to have really only one, maybe two pre-recorded videos air every day and then stream at 5 in the evening. 5 is a little too late though, also. So 1, 2 in the afternoon seems more doable, or even maybe 3, but the way these streams go, as they are, they tend to be 3.5 hour long streams that I don't want to start at 5 and potentially end up at 9 or 10. I did manage off screen to get the daily quest done, so we have 3 new daily quests. I also recognized that the entire time I was streaming last time I was playing the wrong characters, and so I wasn't making progress. So swordcraft or runecraft this today, and I guess that's all we really need to do. So let's hop into a game. I'm being a little bit cautious here because I'm not sure I'm not gonna run into network trouble. I was having network trouble earlier. The quality of service settings still a little weird. The part of the problem here is that a lot of my settings for my quality of service were settings when I was getting only 100 megabits download, and at some point, probably a year or 2 or even 3 ago, my internet service provider said, you're already on the cheapest plan we have. We're not going to even bother to offer that speed anymore. We're going to just double you up to from 100 to 200. And they didn't really put much of a notification out about that where I would have paid enough attention to make the adjustments. So now I'm trying to actually set it up so it properly allocates the full bandwidth. Which maybe that is the right thing to do, maybe it isn't. Because you want to set up quality of service to have a certain percentage of overhead, not 100%. You don't want to be at 50% your download speed. Frankly, download speed's not even that important. It's just seemingly like that is still somehow affecting like the connection of Shadowverse in particular. Let's see, what do I want to do? Do I want to kill this? Or just let it do its thing? Well, it seems like that's gonna work, so we should be fine. So let's move forward. I did curate a lot of the games that were left over from Saturday, because remember, Thursday and Friday my internet was down, and thankfully it never went down again. But in the curation of that, I closed some, but not a ton of tabs. And so we still have plenty of games to do. I also have been continuing down the path of playing Pinball Arcade. Pinball Arcade as a program kind of is a bummer, and the story and history behind it, and the fact that at least as far back as October of 2020, it seems like Pinball FX and Pinball Arcade both have decided to basically not put any new content in their platforms, where ideally you would like, although you would probably never get it, you would like the possibility of a new table or at least a new tournament every month, and there's like no tournament even in Pinball Arcade. They've just lost momentum. And then you have the factor of the games, pinball micro-scaled or miniature-scaled pinball tables, which don't really have a clear path to use either Pinball FX or Pinball Arcade, although it seems like you probably could use them. There's a whole cabinet mode that is supposed to work on Pinball Arcade, but it seems like you have to pay a $600 license that they don't even sell anymore to unlock cabinet mode, which seems insane. And I couldn't even get it to work with just multiple screens anyways. So yeah, I really could not recommend to people that they buy Pinball Arcade. Instead, the recommendation now, after I had already bought almost every single table for Pinball Arcade, the recommendation now is probably to get Pinball FX3 and cross your fingers that it runs better and smoother than Pinball FX2 did. But then there is also an argument to just using the games miniature real-world pinball table and buying tables for that, but that is fairly expensive because you're buying this computer, effectively this custom computer case, and they sell packs of 11 tables for $50, so you definitely aren't getting any kind of budget, any discount or anything. So yeah, Pinball Arcade very much feels like a premium priced program where you have to buy each table that is then polished very poorly and pretty much abandoned also. Alright. Select 3 enemies. Destroy all others. That one, and that one. And then hit that one.
Loyalty is ironclad.
Then
it all ends here.
Go ahead and just evolve that one and hit that.
Loyalty is ironclad.
No one gets past me.
Then attack there.
Best of luck to you.
Well, that worked pretty well. As for the actual tables, they're fine, but as I'm moving into the 80s era tables, there's been quite a few that all of a sudden don't really have the opportunity to increase the number of balls, so you can't play with like a 5-ball mode. Also, some of them you can go the 5-ball mode, but you have to go through the operator's menu, which I know they're trying to emulate the operator's menu for historical reasons, but it seems kind of insane and complicated and just not well explained. So I'm not sure I fully can appreciate
No one gets past
what's
me.
going on there.
Alone. Die, creep.
Steal yourself.
And a lot of the tables are frankly just not that good. So that is another factor, is that it's just like, yeah, do I really want to play this? Like one of the games was one of the pinball tables was called Genie, and there seems to be kind of a running theme that in the 70s, at least, if the table has a scantily clad, bikini laden lady and is trying to sell on sex, then the table itself is pretty terrible. Genie is kind of a great example of that. And I went through like 3 or 4 tables that weren't that great, and then I would play like Gorgar, which is a good table in my opinion, but it's an old table too, so it's kind of hard to justify playing it too much other than just for the passion of playing it. And I've put myself in this weird position where I have so many tables that I would want to go through. I'm now kind of fuzzying the market and making it difficult to make the simple decision to just stick with one one table and play it for 2 or 3 hours. This is also a weird pre-recorded series because effectively I'm replaying Pinball Arcade. Just this time I have a lot more tables to show off. When I originally spotlit it, I was playing just the free games, and yeah, the menu is another issue with Pinball Arcade, where it's just not very nicely polished. It's so bare bones. You don't even have like custom audio settings per table, whereas every table is going to make different noises. It would make a lot of sense to be able to have custom settings for each table and be able to override it if certain tables make annoying sounds, which a lot of them do.
You must die.
The DirectX 11 version of Pinball Arcade does not put pictures on the wall in the background, which is weird. It doesn't really matter, I'm sure, but certainly is weird that the DirectX 9 version does that. Both the DirectX 9 and 11 version claim that multiplayer beta is a feature coming. I severely doubt that it is ever coming. If anything, if we were going to see anything from the developers of Pinball Arcade, more pinball, which their most recent game is a bowling game, and that didn't sell particularly well either. But if they were going to make any improvements, it would be because they would want to release the game in a newer polished version for the Switch and the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5, since they've released some variation of Pinball Arcade on so many other platforms. But I wouldn't be surprised if they actually don't have any desire to even do that and would prefer to just get the sales that they can get. In particular, since they don't have the Williams and Bailey's license, it would be fairly impossible for them to sell anything for the new consoles, because all they could get is maybe some Stern tables. It seems like that's about the only people doing business with them. Meanwhile, Pinball FX3 would be the real people to come out and release that for the newest consoles, and we're not hearing of that too. Also, Pinball FX3 has to be applauded for doing better business and creating their own tables that they cannot lose the license to. They also own the licenses to a lot of the tables that I have in Pinball Arcade, so this is a case where theoretically, ideally, you would just spend a whole bunch of money to buy it twice, but that is not frugal by any means to do that. Okay, can we increase? I have only one of these Coliseums on highs, apparently. Yeah, And I need to definitely test and see how Pinball FX3 plays before I even think about potentially going down that route of purchasing the same tables on Pinball FX3. And even then, that's ridiculous. If it took me 3 years to play the tables that I bought 3 years ago on Pinball Arcade, the right answer is to just admit to yourself that you're a passing fan, or I am a passing fan of pinball, and not as hardcore of a fan as I thought, or as I would kind of like to be. I still would much prefer to just play the pinball tables in real world, in real life, and yeah, that's more difficult. All right.
This will be over in the blink of an eye.
I did not see that this one had a.
You are done for.
You won't even know you've been cut.
Didn't see that guy was blocking with the shield or taunt or whatever it's called. So yeah, I got a couple of episodes of playing a couple tables. There is a problem, certainly, though, that I'm up to the first 1980s table, which is the black and white, and I'm favoriting the tables that I kind of liked. And I've been through probably 11, and I think 3 are frankly worth playing again. It also creates a weird Steam achievement issue where there's like 274 achievements you could unlock, but Steam only highlights achievements if you get all the achievements done. So that would mean I would have to put a lot of hours into playing a lot of tables that I do not like. It would be very, very frustrating.
Miscreants.
Think I'm gonna lose here.
I've seen them.
Well, let's see if this shifts the.
I need more fear, more terror.
Interesting. It wasn't able to summon the thing I would want to summon. So we'll keep that alive. We'll keep that alive. We'll keep that alive. Destroy that.
Die, cretin.
Go ahead and attack that.
Good luck.
And then puts us in a slightly better position, but not much.
Bow before my tempest.
I desperately need to schedule things, but I kind of entertained the thought earlier today that I might have finally hit the point where something isn't scheduled, but I don't think that's true at all.
Critter worth their salt.
Wind, grant them courage.
I did notice that I have quite a high number of content ID copyright claims that I could, I suppose, do something about, but I don't know if it's really worth the effort to do a bunch of counter claims on content ID when I'm not monetized anyways. If anything, I think being rather busy might be like the best move too. So doing it like at the last 2 weeks of December every year and just filling out counter notifications like crazy then might be the smarter move. Just letting it stack up. I am somewhere around 500 subscribers, so if there was just a random success that doubled the number of subscribers, then I could get back to 1,000 bare minimum. I don't know what kind of random success my channel would have though to cause that. Let's see. Alright, let's go through the video game news. There's really no reason to stretch this out. I think I'm gonna get the daily quest done fairly quickly today if I'm lucky. What do we want to do?
This town is good folk for breakfast. This town is good folk for breakfast.
So do we want to kill a couple people?
With one fell blow, I will withdraw for now.
And just attack there, I guess. WB Montreal had a tweet here, and I'm not trying to push a narrative, I don't think, but there is certainly a narrative to highlight here, in that they're trying to have Women's Month, I suppose, happen and be a thing, and they're trying to highlight women in the video game industry, which is notoriously an industry that doesn't have that many women. So they have instead this second week dedicated to female street artists who basically don't work for WB Montreal or video games in general, but at some point she drew a Batgirl. And since WB Games Montreal makes Gotham Knights, they're highlighting that. That seems kind of ridiculous. They've been doing this. Previously there was this kind of hideous art, which is way off the style you would normally expect. Yeah, there's definitely something here on February 23rd too, a wall of black text. So yeah, they're virtue signaling basically. Meanwhile, if they wanted to highlight something, they should highlight the fact that they have employed females, which I assume they have.
Let's speed things
Your
up.
mission is to come back alive.
Alright,
Don't
let's
fall
do
out of
that.
line.
And do that.
Too slow.
And do that. And in the turn. In a lot of ways, that's not video game related, come to think of it. It at a certain point, it does kind of make an argument that you shouldn't report on the ugly underbelly of the personalities of the SJWs that mostly make up video game development. If you did turn a blind eye to it, then there's certainly a lot of stuff that you would probably not realize were affecting you, but you might be happier. See, could we give 2-2 and rush and defeat something? Kind of need to play this,
Uncharted desert awaits.
and then kind of need to play this, and then let's play
My
this.
resolve is rock solid. Critical hit.
Okay,
How dare you mock
then we'll
me?
attack that. And then we'll end the turn. I kind of can't attack with this, otherwise I kill myself in 2 turns. We have a game on Steam here called Ragnarok Skies, which is a shoot 'em up game. It looks oddly off-centered, and otherwise maybe a little zoomed in too much. It's $19.99, English full audio, and a bunch of other languages. It's got some character designs on it that look a little bit different than normal. Not just seeing an average anime girl or witch showing up as the shooter of the bullets. Right. Let's do this. And then this.
Ninja art. Sheep counting jutsu.
Interesting. I could do that. And then do that. That'll kill that. Alright. Apparently there was a 26 gigabyte update for the Outer Worlds for Series X and PlayStation 5 that seemingly has improved the frame rate. Seemingly also they have also announced officially that they have speed boosted several of the Bethesda games to run on the Xbox Series at higher frame rates. Inherently, particularly when you're talking like Skyrim, there is a lot of there's a lot of wiggle room on Skyrim Remastered and such to improve that content and make it a better game. Alright, well, deal 3 random or evolve this and deal 3
All
random.
ends here. I've got 8 transformations up my sleeve.
Okay.
Bam!
Hit this.
You're wide open.
Critter worth their salt.
Darn it. Oh, I've just lost. Speaking of SJWs, that's an unfair transition, certainly. Susan Wojcicki is trying to honor the life of Breonna Taylor. They've apparently partnered with the African American Policy Forum and Sandy Locks, who I guess is working with that. It's kind of hard to not support Breonna Taylor, assuming I remember who Breonna Taylor is correctly, since she was randomly shot by police in a shootout when the police were trying to arrest her boyfriend, and they, according to the boyfriend, didn't identify themselves, and then he shot thinking they were being robbed. He shot his own gun. It is certainly something you could go into a lot of detail on, but none of it has anything to do with video games or, frankly, YouTube even. So it would be very easy, frankly, for Susan Wojcicki to not have done this and stayed more neutral and just focused on making YouTube a better place for everybody. But, you know, they don't care about doing that. I believe also YouTube fired...
You must die.
has now fired 2 women of color
Come on.
who were AI ethical watchdog roles because of one reason or another. It seems like they were effectively telling them that the AIs that they were programming at Google were not doing a good job, and instead of saying, oh yeah, we need to fix these AIs, they just fired the watchdog people. Or at least that seems like that's the case. It could also have been the case for Google that both of their watchdog employees were were meant to just toe the party line, and they were never supposed to raise any issues, or they were flaming SJWs themselves, and so they were creating problems or seeing problems when there actually wasn't one to be seen in the first place. Generally, though, I would like to just see all companies not talk about politics and focus on their own products, which most companies' products suck, and YouTube is not an exception there. So, yeah, I think it is going to be a very sad day in the world if people start supporting companies not because the products they make are good for the people, but because they have just bought into politics as football mentality, and they're just gonna be ride or die with a company. That is the exact thing that has been complained about Apple fanboys, and for a brief time even Android fanboys too, is that people just getting Apple products and getting all the Apple products because they love Apple. But yeah, particularly on the Breonna Taylor case, there's no way to smear that, and particularly even trying to smear support for her just echoes and feels like a dog whistle to racism, because that's how the narrative would certainly spin that too, is if you're not supporting people who are if you're not supporting the idea that people should not be randomly shot by the police when they are A, not fleeing from the police, and B, in their own home, and C, not even the target of an arrest from the police. We've seen lots of cases of that where the police are far too willing to shoot guns.
You wouldn't.
Moving on back to video games, we have a game called Dungeon Delver, which looks a little MS Painty as a dungeon rogue game, or they're calling it a roguelike. It's free, English full audio. For the price, it's not terrible. It does look like somebody actually tried to make a game here, but it does get back to that weirdness of why bother to make a game and make it free when there's no in-app purchases? Why pay that $100 to list your game on Steam? At a certain point, I think if you are just trying to prove that you can program games and you're trying to break into the video game industry that way, you probably should just open source your game at that point and release it on GitHub or something like that. More Linux games would certainly be appreciated by the Linux community as free and open source than your free game showing up on Steam and not mattering to that audience that's only interested in AA and AAA games. Here's the Xbox Wire FPS boost for Dishonored Definitive Edition, Fallout 4, Prey, and Fallout Steel Dawn, and Skyrim. I assume that is remastered. Skyrim Special Edition. I guess it was called Special Edition. This is the underlying issue, I think, where I was hearing someone just immediately assume it was a bad thing that Microsoft acquired Bethesda and ZeniMax and all those. ZeniMax is the parent company, Bethesda, because they thought, oh well, this is just a big corporation, Microsoft, acquiring a smaller corporation, or a small corporation maybe in their minds, of ZeniMax. But in this one instance, it's not really the case. Like, the ideal scenario is that Microsoft is going to eventually restructure and fire everybody at ZeniMax because there's going to be no reason to keep those employees. They were incredibly litigious. They were incredibly bad at actually making games. We're still waiting for Skyrim 6, Elder Scrolls 6, and that's just been teased. Fallout 4 wasn't good. Fallout 76 was a disaster. Dishonored and Prey were given a little bit more leniency. But those are all the child companies. So ZeniMax as a company was just a bunch of lawyers, basically. And Microsoft doesn't need a bunch of lawyers. Meanwhile, you may have had a case where ZeniMax was trying to save some money in accounting and telling everybody to use the same engine, whereas Microsoft may come back and say, no, use different engines for Fallout and Skyrim versus Prey and Dishonored, and perhaps with Microsoft's financial support, the Fallout and Skyrim engines in particular could get major improvements, so the next Bethesda game made isn't just a buggy mess like so many of the previous Bethesda games are. Also, you have the possibility of a Fallout New Vegas happening, or Fallout New Vegas Remaster happening, because Microsoft probably does not care one bit to if the creators of Fallout New Vegas came back into the lurch and continued to program. Microsoft doesn't have pride around that, and Microsoft still has plenty of business if some other company makes the games. We might even see a case where a lot of the somewhat bad programmers at Bethesda get laid off, and then the licenses for Skyrim and Fallout get handed to other companies that Microsoft owns. I don't know if you probably have a good chance of getting a better Elder Scrolls game, say if Double Fine decided to make a Skyrim game instead, but maybe they would. Maybe that would be something Double Fine would be super passionate about, or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe Double Fine will be able to make a much better Psychonauts 2 with the assistance, or with Bethesda taking over Psychonauts 2. If anything, it is much more likely that that the Double Fine staff gets shut down and laid off, and all the games under that license get handed over to a team like from Bethesda or another company. So, yeah. People will undoubtedly, somebody's going to eventually lose their job because of being redundant, but this really, to me, does not feel like a scenario that just sings bad omens. It sings perhaps bad omens if you're a PlayStation 5 player. So far as a consumer, you're getting frame boosts at least, and that was day one, so does that mean we will see more improvements even later? Maybe, maybe not. Here we have a Sokoban game, a block pushing game. I don't think I'm going to use Sokoban as a key phrase to describe games, because that's doesn't really describe it to people who don't know what Sokoban means. So, Bunny's Flowers looks a little too low effort for $7.19. English full audio, allegedly. It looks fine. It's just not really doing anything special. Alright. Invoke or deal 3 damage.
Your
suppose it is worth also pointing out, though, I could be totally wrong. It could be Microsoft just absolutely ruins every single ZeniMax property and subsidiary that they own, and we see the death of Bethesda and the death of the Elder Scrolls series and the complete and total death of like the Doom reboots and Prey and Dishonored. And we never see them actually finish that space game that they allegedly have been working on. Of course, that is another point to point out, is that Bethesda in particular has been doing a terrible job as far as actually making products. They've been very, very behind. I guess I have to play this anyways. So let's do it.
I shall give birth to a new world.
And then I guess we'll play that.
Sheep counting jutsu.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam, Project Blue Book Hidden Mysteries. This is a hidden object game. Overall, it looks fine. It's maybe a little bit more zoomed in than most hidden object games. And oddly, I don't actually see a single image of doing just your standard hidden object gameplay. Yeah, it seems like you're really only looking for 3 objects in every scene. $6.29 English only. Still, frankly, too expensive. Way too expensive. Okay. Is this the officer?
Your mission is to come back alive. Don't count your tanukis. There! Never fear! Your hypersonic gal is here.
Okay.
It won't be long now. Watch your surroundings. Don't fall out of line.
To arms, brother. At your service.
Let's keep on going forward. I went on a bit of a rant, a bit of an opinion piece there. That here we have a game called Destroy the Hexons. This looks like a single screen. I would normally call it a Unity game, but it doesn't even look that good. 69 cents English. Yeah. Let's see. Next, we have a game called Trapped, which looks to me like it's an asset flip walking simulator. They're calling it a puzzle 3D game. I did change the time it takes for tabs to go to sleep and be suspended from 1 minute to 30 minutes. So I think that will fix the duplicate tabs being open problem that I was running into. Or at least it probably will mitigate it a decent amount.
So this is my end.
I desperately need to try and pull something off.
A soldier is a link in the greater code.
Okay.
Be one with the lance. One day we'll reach our goal. Don't fall out of line.
Hit that.
No one gets
And
past
hit
me.
that. All they'd have to do is 1 damage. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Deep Therapy. It's a platformer game.
Your hypersonic
It's
gal is
$1.69 English and Portuguese Brazil.
here. An exemplary battle.
Not anything special there. Next, we have a game called The Frost Rebirth. It's kind of a shame that we haven't hit a slowdown of games being released, because probably could take some time and do a faultless cleanup. But yeah, I think I may wait all the way till December. This looks like this is a survival game. I don't know if there's any other thing here that would catch my eye. I think the answer is probably no. $11.69 English full audio, online co-op, and a third-party EULA. I'm just gonna stick with Swordcraft for today. I don't want to bother playing Runecraft. I've played that a little too much. Here we have a game called Detective Riddles Sherlock Heritage, and this looks like it is just pictograms, where I would have thought it would have been a hidden object game. We might start to see some of the low effort art that usually is reserved for hidden object games showing up in pictograms or other kinds of games. $2.99 English, French, German, and Russian.
You must die.
Silence.
Nothing there.
The dead have no need of words.
Here we have Christmas Griddler's Journey to Santa. And this is from the same publisher, so they're kind of putting a lot of games at the same time. Also, they're putting out a Christmas game on March 15th, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Again, $2.99, same languages. Let's see what this publisher has released on March 15th. 4 games. Yeah, 4 different games on the same day. And then if we scroll down, we see that there's a large collection of other games that they've put out that are pretty much all the same. They try to make them look good, but they're just pictograms, they're mahjong games. There's no real effort here by this publisher. And honestly, I'd have to really question if there would be a reason that a publisher would only publish solitaire games and jigsaw puzzle games and a lot of these cell phone style games that are just kind of low complexity style games. They have been releasing games since November 6, 2016, and I mean 2014. And in all fairness, that game, Royal Defense, is mostly positive with 131 reviews. Although, frankly, that is also a ridiculously small amount of reviews for any game that's been out for 7 years. Here's Caribbean Jigsaw. Same price. This time just English and Russian. Here's the other Christmas Griddlers, which is same price, this time English, German, Russian.
To arms, brother. At your service.
Next game we have is called Gravia, which looks like you have some kind of gravity or black hole ability. You have a hand that looks a lot like the hand from the robot, the Talos Principle. And it is an idea certainly to kind of have something like Portal, but instead of making portals, you are then instead using gravity. It seems like the black holes pull you and other objects, but you don't get absorbed into them. Which I guess there might be a game here. It's early access, $19.99 English full audio. That deserves a follow list. That is really an example too of where physics still rule the roost as far as making new gameplay concepts, and why a game like Pinball Arcade in particular has to probably use their own code, or at least use Unity and then heavily modify Unity, because most first-person shooters, the physics for them have either been done, or the physics can be fairly well cheated, and it doesn't have to be that accurate. But when you start introducing new ideas like portal guns that teleport you to different places, or paint that accelerates you, or gravity balls that pull you forward, those are things that a standard Call of Duty just would not use. And so nobody's programmed that, and nobody's thought about that. And oddly, a pinball running into a bumper is in that level of physics that most that needs custom code. Is there any way I can do anything here more? Just banish that, I suppose.
I remember all.
And then banish a card from your hand and put a copy of it into your deck. Alright.
You are done for.
I don't know why you would want to do that.
Forgotten dreams gather unto me. Allow yourself to forget.
Let's keep on going. Again, don't want to go forever. I don't know if I talked about Pie Day, but not any good pizza pie sales on Pie Day. Although on Sunday, the 14th, Domino's did make an offer, but I didn't respond to it, certainly. So, like, Adafruit selling raspberry pies and every 10% off everything in stock for that fairly niche type of makerspace products was the only deal worth taking up, and even that is a dangerous deal for me to have taken up because I'm not sure I particularly need to be starting more projects. There's been a few I've started that have been backburnered or almost completely permanently backburnered to the point where I may just never finish it. And it's not incredibly wrong. It's not wrong by any means to not finish projects and give up on things when you realize it's not worth your time, but that does mean you end up with more gadgets and more wasted investment in time and money. So you gotta be careful about it. Make sure the idea of doing projects is a hobby you can afford and you actually appreciate. Yeah, I still haven't worked on my server. Just I've had 2 major slowdowns in the power being out for a very long time, and then the internet being out for a very long time. Which I imagine the internet being out may have been because the power went out. But also I was hardly making a lot of progress anyways. So I'm just always eternally behind. Anyways, here we have a game called Pythian. I suppose that's how you pronounce that. This looks visually interesting, although I cannot really figure out what it is. It says it's a hard dance XR experience available worldwide. So it's some kind of VR dance game? Doesn't really look like that, though. If anything, it just looks like it's a bunch of visuals. Early access for 1169 requires VR. I'm going to put this on the follow list because I just want to see what it is. But I feel like it's probably a fairly dishonest description. Right, well, once again, messed up.
If I fall,
Okay.
die, cream.
That.
You still got far to go.
Then now turn on.
I won't lose next time.
Here we have a game called Carrier Battle World War II Admiral of the Fleet. This looks like it might be fairly technical, but it is also MS Paint level graphics and hideous for $13.49. Plus a third-party EULA. English, allegedly full audio, and I seriously doubt that to be the case. Here we have one called Colorful Trip, which looks like it's a low-effort Chinese game that at best is an Asteroids clone. Yeah, it seems about to be pretty much all it is you swap colors and then you try to collect balls. Kind of like Asteroids, $1.59, English and Chinese. Okay. How can we do this so that we kill this? If we do that, we can't do anything else. This could do 3 damage. This can't do anything. This can't do anything. This can't do anything. Do that part. Do that part. Do that part.
Come back alive. It all ends here. Watch your surroundings.
So yeah, I could attack or I can leave everything where it is. Here we have a game called Starlight Defense Command. These are the newer games that I didn't curate, by the way. This looks like garbage. Early access $12.99. The prices are so incredibly laughable. I don't feel like I've gotten more stingy. Maybe perhaps I was fairly stingy to begin with, but it is just kind of insane the level of moxie a lot of these games seem to have, or they're incredibly overpricing themselves.
War is a drama of life and death.
Our melody will bring courage to all.
Oh, I could watch this all day.
Does he have something that can buff this guy? Is the real question.
Should have been quicker.
You wouldn't.
All I can do is this.
I need more fear, more terror.
And then pick that one. And see what would be the easiest ones to keep. That one, and that one, I guess.
You belong now.
And then
Die, creep.
you do this, and then you just lose anyways.
Anyone call for a super salute?
Next, we have a game called Mecha and Tank Fighting, which looks like nothing, for $6.39, English and Chinese. Here we have a game called Maya Treasures. I did look at a review for Honey Pop Double Date, and apparently they kind of changed how it played, so there's kind of less of a dating section now in Double Date and less of a kind of schedule where you would actually only be able to date certain people at certain times. And because you're doing double dates, you kind of switch between 2 characters and decide who you're going to play to try and fill your affinity with. And so it's going to be fairly difficult to get both, or perhaps even possible to get both. And from the review that I saw, it seems like the new characters are perhaps not as interesting and more just stereotypical characters. This is clearly just a match 3 game. It doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look special enough to justify $5.99. English and Russian languages. I don't know what match 3 game would have to do to really catch my attention. You must build a boat and 10 million are probably the baseline as far as a match 3 game. It's going to have a roguelike element. It's going to have something of a story and something of a progression. Here we have a game called The War of the Twins, or whatever these Asian symbols mean. And there might have been enough polish here to make me interested in this, but worlds that have floating islands tend to highlight a laziness as far as world development, and it doesn't really matter. Anyways, this is early access and Chinese only for $3.59. This probably isn't much. It's probably trying to be just a player versus player game. Yeah, online PvP. Play this. And then play this. Next we have Outcast of Orion, which is tagged as an auto battler roguelike. Don't have a ton of auto battlers on Steam. I don't know if I could really play an auto battler or two, unless I was gonna just replace, say, replace Shadowverse with an auto battler, which I have given some thought to that. I don't know how I could play an auto battler otherwise. Anyways, this is $5.03, English for audio. There's just not enough variety in what it's showing me to interest.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out.
Let's see what the best auto battlers are. Anyways, new and trending has a list here of nothing that interesting. There is a lot of games I think here that are going to be mistagged. Teamfight Manager seems to be the best auto battler to exist as far as top sellers. And Underlords, Dota Underlords might be also considered an auto battler. Dota Underlords is at the top of the what's popular list. Top rated, Dota Underlords is at the top of that list too. At a certain point, I think it kind of makes the argument that if Dota Underlords is the best auto battler, then there probably isn't enough oxygen in the room for a second best auto battler, or even a decent auto battler, to get enough sales. And you probably are just better off not trying to make a game like that. Loop Hero is kind of an auto battler, but it has a lot of management regardless of that. And after watching a quick look playthrough, which was probably the first quick look I've watched from Giant Bomb in 4 or 5 months that had any real relevance, and I actually made it all the way to the end and didn't just get bored and move on to another video. Yeah, Loop Hero looks like it might be very playable and something I'd be willing to put my time into, but I'm not willing to put $15 into it because I just don't think there's enough content there. Now, it might be one of those games that gets fairly decent amounts of updates in its first year, and so there might be an argument to going early with it, but you could make that same argument, I suppose, with almost every game that's released. And you just can't ever prove or disprove that kind of conjecture. Here we have a game called Escape from the Underground, which is just an ugly platformer Super Meat Boy clone. Free, at least, and they are comparing it to Super Meat Boy, which is at least, I think, accurate. Right, we can play this.
Uncharted desert awaits.
We can do this.
Sheep counting jutsu. Don't count your tanukis just yet.
And then go ahead and end. Next, we have a game called Dream of Hakio Kuroyu, which just looks like terrible hand-drawn art for a point-and-click adventure. They're calling it an RPG. I guess maybe it might be an RPG. It's $1.19, Chinese only. We are getting back to seeing a decent number of terrible Chinese games. Next, we have a game called Musical Balls, which looks like it's just an extremely low effort black and white game for $3.74, English only. Next, we have a game called Degradation, which looks like it's a first-person shooter asset flip game. It's early access, $4.49. Not seeing any enemies to actually shoot. Okay. Do this.
Together, everyone, for our future.
And then evolve this.
It won't be long now. I will support the vanguard. Carry on.
Play that.
My allies, my friends. Lovely day for a fight.
With
And
one
hit
fell
that.
blow.
You beckoned.
And I guess we have to end the turn there. I guess Degradation is labeled as an alpha, but the idea of selling an alpha on Steam is unacceptable. Next, we have a game called Concealment, which
You something.
looks like it's a asset flip horror puzzle game. Let's see, $3.59, English and Russian.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
Should I give this the time of day?
Sorry, but the time for games is over.
It's 59% already. You know what? I'll give it a follow. I'll give it a chance.
Got your message.
You're hitting 80-90% chance that this is nothing, but I don't want to be too cruel or just eliminate something because it happens to be Russian.
I need more beer, more terror.
Got a job to do.
We do that. Then we keep that one. And then that one. And then that one.
I'll live again.
Die,
Then we
creep.
attack that one.
Loyalty is ironclad.
And go ahead and evolve.
It all ends here.
Harder armor. Steel yourself.
Hit that one.
Loyalty is ironclad.
And in the turn.
Yeah, I love this job. Of course I do.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Kokoro Blend, which looks like it's a color puzzle game. Never heard of this game, Kokoro. $2.99. I'm comparing it to The Witness and Plants vs. Zombies.
This party owns those.
I'm gonna give this a follow because any puzzle that I don't immediately understand does potentially mean there might be something here. Of course, it could be
Your favor, but
absolutely nothing
Feel the excitement?
too.
is it worth their salt?
Right.
I need more beer, more terror.
Got a job to do.
That one, and that one. And
Die,
then
cretin.
Attack that one.
Good luck.
Hmm. See, I can do this. But I don't even have any allied officers on the field, so there would be no reason to do that.
My loyalty is ironclad.
That's an allied officer. Here we have a game called Game for Skippers, which is terrible
Loyalty is
hand
ironclad.
drawings for 59 cents with 100 achievements. So we're starting to see some achievement games also pop up again. Again, fairly easy to stop that from happening by simply not allowing new publishers to publish games with 100 achievements.
Love me a critter worth their salt.
Next we have a game on Steam called Starvoly. Starvoly. Looks like a low polygon survival game for $14.99, English only. Okay. We need to kill this guy, I think. Unless we want to do something else. Okay. We could do this. Or we could do this.
Sow the seeds of war, reap the profit.
Okay.
This is jolly
Let's
good fun.
hit this one.
Is that another battle I smell?
Hit that one.
Shutting down.
And then... I guess you do this.
Let's speed things up. Too slow.
Attack there.
Mean.
This is our way out.
Guess you attack there.
Shutting down.
That's mean.
Yeah, the fact that I'm still having to use 4 different tabs to open up these pages is creating runs of bits of information where I would have much preferred to bury it up. I don't know a way to fix that though. Not easily, at least. Alright. What can we do? This,
Your mission is to come back alive.
and then this,
A soldier is a link in the greater chain.
and then
Be one with the
hit
lance.
that.
I'll live again.
Don't fall out of line.
And just hit in the turn. Because it doesn't matter, you're gonna do 4 damage anyways. May not have even benefited me to attack with the other one.
I'll show you.
Here we have a game called Alexei Run, which is clearly a political Russian troll game
Retreat.
for 59 cents, English and Russian. Nothing more needs to be said there.
An exemplary battle.
I'm still getting my butt handed to me fairly frequently here. Let's see. Try again. Tech Raptor has an article here. 30XX is faster, sharper, and getting better. This is a Mega Man inspired game, I believe. I actually heard somebody was playing a bunch of the Mega Man X games, and I was actually surprised that that specific person was playing it, because I wouldn't have particularly attributed it, that person to be willing to go through the frustration of a Mega Man game, although the Mega Man 10, Mega Man X games are, I think, probably fairly noob friendly compared to the original Mega Man games. And yeah, I don't think there's anything new to say about Loop Hero that I haven't already said. Let's see. Game of Sutra has an article here. EA says some staff may have engaged in illicit FIFA 21 content granting. This is more fallout for EA Gate, and it seems like they're pretty much admitting that they have now confirmed that that is exactly what went on. Let's see. Go ahead and play that. Let's see. Read Only Memories newer driver adds a PS5 and Switch version, and the PC demo is now available. This is a continuation or sequel to Read Only Memories, which, if I recall correctly, was mostly a visual novel, although this trailer certainly isn't indicating that. Yep, it's tagged as a visual novel. It might have a decent story. No telling, really.
Things up. And too slow.
I am almost certainly completely booked as far as visual novel games until I finish the Nonary game series and finish the Danganronpa series. At this point, I don't think I'm touching anything else that's even close to a visual novel until then. And even at that, I'm probably going to waste a lot of time and a lot of effort going through those two series. Let's see. Nothing. Go ahead and play that.
Too slow. And to the head.
That. Gematsu has this week's Japanese game releases: Magnum Lord and Jack Jian. Jean. I think it's Jian. That's how you pronounce it. Plus various ports for all platforms. I know this game Jack Jian was announced, but I haven't heard anything about it in quite a while. Also, it's been a long time since we've looked at the Japanese game release list. Perhaps that's because they've been in pandemic lockdown mode. Or perhaps that's just because I've missed it from Gematsu. It's kind of not very much news, considering that's useful only really to a small number of people in Japan that would like to know what came out and wouldn't have already figured it out through some other methods. Gematsu has an old people mayhem sandbox called Just Die Already, which has added a PS4, Xbox One, and Switch versions. This is a game I have not seen before. It seems like it's fairly gory. And I don't know if this feels like this is a YouTuber bait type game. You can see that there is Jacksepticeye in there playing on the trailer, so yeah. I don't think that there's a real game here. If anything, this might just get you demonetized if you're not careful. Interesting. Didn't trigger this. So I could say keep that one, and that one, and that one.
See you around, Slick.
Kill those.
Die,
Hit that one.
Loyalty is
Actually, that was
ironclad.
pointless. I should have attacked that one instead.
Are you some sort of imbecile?
Yeah, that was really pointless. I could have attacked that one, taken two less damage, and then this ability would have cleared the field anyways. A pixel art monster catching game called Koromon for PC launches Q3 of 2021. This may have been a game we've heard about, but there's been quite a few of these. If anything, it seems to me like the newest release of Pokemon games did spur a lot of people to think about making Pokemon clones. This so far looks the closest to an actual Pokemon game. It doesn't look like you're getting ridiculous with it. It doesn't look like the monsters look odd or terrible. It's not the new generation of 3D models Pokemon game, but that's kind of fine too. Inherently, you do have to ask yourself the question, is a monster collecting RPG something you really even want to play, or is Pokemon just baby's first RPG game and you're better off playing a standard RPG where you're not trying to collect every single kind of monster that exists? I guess it probably heavily depends on your level of fandom.
Got a job.
Or keep. Well, actually, we'll keep this one, and this one, and this one,
This ain't ideal, is it?
and then
Die, creep.
hit that one.
Mean son of a gun, ain't you?
Hope it hits the other guy, but it didn't. A game called Ashwalkers: A Survival Journey launches April 15th. Looks like it's kind of going for a black and white pencil sketch visual. Not sure though if this isn't just a survival game. Like, no real gameplay being shown there. A lot of these announcements are the mixed game dev direct announcements that are still going on. Which maybe the mixed game direct will become more of an event every year. A sci-fi turn-based tactical RPG called We Are the Caretakers launches in early access on PC on April 22nd. Which, do we have a bit of a trailer to see what this is? If I recall correctly, this is something we've seen a tease before where they're like characters that are in charge of caretaking animals that are protected by like elder gods of the world. If that's the story, it kind of doesn't seem like it really matters that much because the actual gameplay here looks very much just like an XCOM game. I definitely am unimpressed by that experience. I guess we'll try Runecraft. Let's see, Runecraft would be this, right? Yeah. According to Gametsu, Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion launches in April, which that's one heck of a name, certainly.
Don't underestimate me.
A stylish first-person shooter called Severed Steel launches this summer for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I suppose we are at a point now where people are going to claim that games are coming out in the summer, and people actually think that's going to happen. There was definitely a point in the last couple of weeks where a lot of people in the United States seemed to to have just decided that the pandemic is over without there being really any reason for it. People just got tired and ran out of attention span, I think. So I wouldn't be surprised if companies still have that same mentality too, and we're gonna get a bunch of games announced for summer, and then they're gonna get pushed back to, we might be in entire cycles of games getting announced and then games getting pushed back and then games getting announced and then getting pushed back. A twin stick shooter called Godstrike launches April 15th for the Switch and PC, which, see if we can see some gameplay here. Well, the menu looks nice. Looks like there's several different abilities that you can equip, and then you're floating around shooting things as this tiny little character, and then there's a giant worm creature. This feels like a boss battle, so this might be a twin stick shooter where you are just taking on multiple bosses and doing kind of a boss rush mode. Some of these screenshots look very bullet hellish too, so that might scare me away from a game like that.
I go with the wind.
A game called Snacko has a trailer from the Mixed Game Direct. This looks like a Stardew Valley game. It says it's a farming cat adventure. I kind of like that flat pixel art style in 3D for a cutesy type game. That seems like that might work a little bit, but overall it is still just a Stardew Valley game, and I don't think this is gonna work for me. Maybe it would work for younger kids. Let's see. If we do this, we'll probably die. If we do this.
I go with the wind. Got to roam in style.
Best of luck to you.
Yeah, we have a game called Clang 2, which seems to be some kind of music game. It's adding a PS5 and Xbox Series version, launching Q3 of 2021. Let's see. What is this? It is some kind of music rhythm game that depicts your rhythm and movements as a fight, which, that sounds interesting, but it's very much out of my wheelhouse since I basically have no rhythm. I don't know if I could really play a game like that. That would definitely be the type of game I'd have to put on the fall list and heavily consider. Okay. What can we do? 2 Earthrights, is that enough to protect ourselves? I don't think it is.
The uncharted desert awaits.
I think we gotta kind of do something like this.
Chaotic good.
That way we can. Basically hit that. Go and play that.
Got to roam in style.
Hit that.
Yeah, I love
Got
this
to
job.
roam in
Of course I
style.
do.
Hit that.
Best of luck to you.
Did this one attack? This one attack?
Mana, come forth.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
The Idolmaster Side M Growing Stars has been announced for iOS and Android, so we're still getting Idolmaster games. Which honestly, at this point, I think Idolmaster as a series is probably ready to be done with it, so.
Wait,
Boy, did that That whole trailer was nothing but text. The virtual YouTubers in particular could pretty much decimate the case for lots of the Idolmaster series and Hatsune Miku and several other virtual idol things. There's a article here for Tasomachi behind the Twilight story trailer. This is not a game I recognize though, so if this was announced before this point, I missed it.
Don't underestimate me. Time for me to prove myself.
It looks like an interesting, almost Genshin Impact style world, which very Chinese influenced. It looks like there's some platforming elements. I don't know if that's all this game is though, is wandering around an environment and platforming. But yeah, we'll undoubtedly get more announcements and more teases around this game and lots of other games. Microsoft has released a new Xbox wireless headset with a microphone, although it's not being shown in this image, it's on the other side. It is an over-the-ear design, which is nice, and frankly something that can be built at an economy of scale and fairly cheap, that is available easier to kids, might be very interesting. Like suggesting like an Audio-Technica 25 or 50 is a little too expensive for most people, and the wireless versions in particular tend to be fairly really expensive. Here you can see the byline here is the best budget friendly headset for Xbox, cuts very few corners. The only real question here is there a way to get this thing to use this? It uses Bluetooth version 4.2, and almost every version of Bluetooth, particularly with the audio, is a major reinvention of the technology. It is SBC codec. I don't know what that is. So it, I think, also uses maybe its own proprietary technology too.
What masterpiece will I create today?
So here you can see it says excellent design, easy to use dials. I don't know what the dials do. It supports concurrent wireless connections, and $99 is a good price. That's fairly expensive still for a wireless headset, when you could probably find $50 versions that are awful in quality, but people wouldn't know that until they already bought it. The bad stuff is there's no multifunction button for controlling Bluetooth devices. There is no 3.5mm jack, and it's not compatible with non-Xbox consoles. Which, okay, that's an issue. It seems to have a flexible microphone attachment. I wouldn't be surprised if you can remove the microphone completely by pressing this green button. No, that is the pairing and power button. And there's an LED that tells you when the microphone is active. Seems like there's one thing you would want to know is how easy and cheap is it to replace these headphone parts, the cushions, because that's what wears out more than anything. That, and if there's leather on the top of the headband, that wears out too. I wore out my Audio-Technica pleather or leather on the top of it, and bought a like $5 zippered up cover for it to just continue to have use out of the headphones. And my headphones have lasted a very long time, very well. So I'm very happy with the Audio Technicas, which are plug-in headphones. I think that the wire does annoy me, but potentially having batteries and having batteries die would annoy me a lot more. And honestly, if I wasn't speaking into a microphone, I would not be using headphones at all. So it is fairly interesting to see. Here's some more pictures. And they've got the right and left on the inside instead of on the outside, which is a different way to do it. It's kind of interesting to see Microsoft release a new piece of hardware and it not be really a necessary piece of hardware. We've been seeing that trend with like the accessibility controller, which that was more of a licensed product anyways, and they talked about that for quite a bit, and then they sort of forgot about it.
A second wind blows. Got to roam in style.
You crusty horseshoe.
Opportunities abound.
But yeah, I guess Microsoft did need a new headphone of some sort. The last time they gave any kind of headset, it was a cheap plastic headset, and I don't know if you get cheap plastic headsets in any kind of build or setup for the Xbox Series consoles. Like, I think I got my Xbox 360 headset and chat pad because they were either cheap at GameStop and extra purchases I made, or because they were actually included in a special online focused version of the Xbox 360 that I purchased. Both of those seem very believable as to reasons why it would have come with a headset.
I go with the wind. Got to roam in style.
That ought to do it. This match is mine.
Let's go and evolve this guy.
Learn to covet on a grid. You leave a lot to be desired.
And then let's go and play that.
Opportunities abound.
Moving on, Gamasutra has this article. A suspected DDoS attack has taken the Little Big Planet servers offline. I know that there's another
How did I lose?
company here, the game developer company Dear Villagers can no longer be reached at bugs@artifactstudios.fr because of the big data center fire. So that was a data center that burnt, which probably is going to affect a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised if it may have even had something to do with my internet being out in general. So yeah, data centers are frankly a prime candidate to be set on fire, considering the heat and the electronics in them, but they usually are designed very well to not be set on fire, and you would have expected a fire suppression CO2 system or something else, or actual water, if nothing else, to put out a fire and not do as much damage as it seems like it did. Moving on, a first-person psychological horror game called The Evil Inside launches March 25th for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Let's see if we got a trailer here. it's been a while, I guess, since we've seen some AA and AAA horror games be announced. Let's go and skip. This is going to be a slow lead up. This feels very much influenced by PT. Like this is the exact hallway of PT. They've just moved some things around. Although, can you really copyright a hallway? Probably not. And it does seem like there's more direct horror jump scares and less build up in this trailer. And frankly, this trailer might be a joke. Anyways. So, yeah, this might be nothing, or it might be something. It's going to be hard to tell for a while until we see some reviews. Warner Media is looking for a senior graphics engineer out of Carlsbad, California, San Diego, California. So they're looking for somebody to work on a Warner Bros. Game. So if you are good at doing games based off anything Warner Brothers ever does, whether that would be Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, or more likely Batman, that might interest you. Although I'm not sure working for Warner Brothers or Warner Media is particularly something you're gonna enjoy.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra has this article, and this story just does not seem to ever end. Red Candle has decided to relaunch Devotion for a third time, this time through its own official eShop, which it was going to be re-released on Good Old Games, and then again, Good Old Games was shouted out by, one assumes, people acting on behalf of the Chinese government. So, at least at this case, and this probably should have been Red Candle's decision first and foremost, after the first time it had been removed from Steam or pulled from sale from Steam. I feel like even in that case, that was pulled by the publisher and not Steam themselves. So I don't think we can really even blame Steam for censorship or bowing to pressure to censor things. But yeah, I imagine Devotion will be sold on their eShop, and some people will probably take that extra step to buy it. I imagine there'll be some streamers that take the extra step to stream it, and maybe that'll cause some small controversy. That would be like a prime candidate for a game that PewDiePie would play, in my mind. But I imagine we've got to be near the end of that story. I cannot really believe that more controversy can come from that one game, which isn't even controversial. Let's see. Games with Gold, it released for this month Warface Breakout, Vicious Attack Llama Apocalypse, Metal Slug 3, and Port Royale 3. Images not seemingly loading, or this page is just zoomed in too much. Let me see. Maybe if I zoom out to a little bit better. Nope. That's just an awkwardly spaced paragraph of text.
My resolve is rock solid. Critical hit.
How did I miss that? Your jolly good fun.
Next, we have a game called Genesis Noir, launching March 26th, which looks like it might be a somewhat interesting art style. Of course, calling a game Genesis Noir, it's gonna have to have kind of a decent story too. It seems to be promising that, so I hope it can deliver. This would be a very unique looking game, so I'd like it to succeed on that merit alone. It'd also be nice if it was a decently playing game, or at least uniquely playing game.
Come in every shade imaginable.
A game called Curved Space, which is apparently available for a bunch of things, pretty much everything. Launches June 28th. This is apparently some kind of twin stick shooter game with ships. Yeah, it seems like you're on the outside of ships and you're shooting at alien bugs crawling on the outside of spaceships. Almost like a Mario Galaxy concept. Well, that would be different. I don't know if I could fully appreciate something like that compared to playing a standard shoot 'em up game, and that there is potentially an argument there that I should play a shoot 'em up game first. At least a couple shoot 'em up games before I play something that is a iteration of a shoot 'em up. I probably played that backwards. Should have probably attacked the other character with this one.
I'll design a brighter future for everyone.
The eShop version that they're going to sell is going to be DRM free, so basically the first unit that sells is going to be fairly easy to put on a pirate site if it drops away from sale at this point.
Nothing stops me once I got my speedy boots on.
Meanwhile, there is still the game Detention, which you can buy on Steam, I believe. So that's still a thing that exists. I more than likely will accidentally buy and play Detention and not even remember that it is from the same people that made Devotion. Not that that really would change my opinion anyways, or my decision in any way.
It all ends here.
Harder armor, stronger armor. Steel yourself.
Mean son of a gun, ain't ya?
Die, cretin.
You're pretty good.
How did I miss that?
Gamatsu has an article here. Masami Yamato has left Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan studio, the latest in a long line of departing creators. So yeah, Yamato was the external production director and executive producer, and has worked on titles such as the No Heroes Allowed series, Tokyo Jungle, Rain, Bloodborne, Soul Sacrifice, Freedom Wars, and more. That's not particularly any games I recognize, but it certainly does once again highlight that whether it's true or not, the perception is clearly true. I assume it's just this guy in the middle is Masami, and I don't know why they wouldn't have cropped out the other two characters so it doesn't look like all three of them left or found a different photo. But clearly it feels like the Japanese people working at Sony feel like they don't want to work at Sony anymore. And I can't help but feel like that is because of a single factor, not just a random collection or a random convergence of people's aging to the time where they would potentially all retire at the same time. That's not believable. I'm gonna lose here. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Forza Yang, which is clearly just going for like a weird name, I think. It seems to be like several different environments where you stand in one place and do a shooting gallery game. But it also kind of feels like a asset flip game, and they're calling it a whack-a-mole game, which that's completely inaccurate for what this is. This is clearly a shooting gallery game. But yeah, I think that price at 59 cents scares me away more than it convinces me to want to play. So I'm gonna have to say no to that. And I'm going to take a little bit of a pause, and I'll be back in just a minute. So, like literally just a minute, probably. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Although, I just wanted to get some water, and that was a mistake because as soon as I stood up, I started getting an urge to go to the bathroom, so now I may very well end up having to pause the video and go to the bathroom in 10 or 20 minutes. So, while we try to avoid that happening, let's try and burn through these games. I'm basically almost to the point where the old games hit, so if there's enough of a curated experience, we could burn through them fairly quickly and call it a day. That would be a very short stream at like 2 hours. This game Bongo Arena doesn't look polished enough for me. Turn-based strategy game. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Free to play, English, Chinese, nothing there. And then if I got a quick disconnect or two, I would really appreciate that from Shadowverse. Yeah, we have a game called Mysterious Blocks, which seems to be a 3D block movement game. I'm not sure how this really is supposed to play, but it honestly doesn't look like anything. $1.39 English Russian. Yeah.
Too slow.
Just doesn't look like a real game. Yeah, I need to get this card Grand Acquisition out of this deck. It's useless. Here we have a game called Kiki and Anna the Child, which looks like a RPG Maker game. There's also a horror game. They're calling it cute and emotional. I think I'm fairly certain this is a horror game. Regardless, it's not even available for sale. English full audio. I don't know what happened to that. Like the sale button is just totally missing. It came out November 10th of 2020 and got apparently delisted and then relisted.
Too slow.
So weak.
Alright, so now we're at the old games. Here we have one called Snow Wars, which is, I think, something we already talked about. A snowman twin stick shooter for $1.79, English and Russian. Hopefully we don't have too many repeated games. Here we have one called Bok Bok. Yeah, this also was one I think we talked about as a low effort looking game. Alright.
Strength and beauty together.
Too slow.
A roguelike brawler called Chinso Club has been announced for consoles and PC,
Should have been quicker.
which, let's see, it does look like it's kind of a hack and smash jumper platformer game. Looks like it might be a little too difficult because it's got that Super Meat Boy mentality to it. If anything, it's taking the idea of Super Meat Boy and going even further, because now there are a whole bunch of enemies that are going to try and attack you. And I bet several people will like this kind of game, but I'm feeling it's not for me.
Our melody will bring courage to all.
Here we have a game called VR Parallel World. We may have already talked about this one too. And this clearly is just a low effort asset flip thing. Yeah, I'm not seeing any real game here. $5.99 is way too cheap for a VR game. Particularly a VR game that is supposed to be a entire world simulator. Also, there's no online component to this, which is shocking. Let's see. I guess you can do this. And then you can do this.
Got a job to do.
And then you can do this. And this. And that.
That's hot.
Die, creep.
Loyalty is ironclad.
And we'll just end at that.
Loyalty is ironclad.
The game Skatebird has a new stage developer commentary video, if you're interested in that, from Gamatsu.
Critter worth their salt.
My dragon and I are one.
Here we have a game called Space Gladiators, which is tagged as an action indie roguelike. It's rated very positively, with 97 reviews, so I might be willing to put this on the follow list. It's $10.49, bunch of languages. Let's see. Play this.
Escape my way. A prime target.
Right. Next we have a game called Gravity Master, which looks like it's a gravity game that's perhaps a little too low detailed, a little too monochrome in its color. Like, it just doesn't look as interesting as the other gravity game we've seen today. $9.99, English only. Yeah, I don't think I can put that one on the follow list. Here we have a game called Out of Sight, which apparently is a 3D hidden object game, which I have desperately wanted to find a 3D hidden object game, so I am definitely putting this on the follow list. $5.99, bunch of languages. I've often wondered why more people haven't made 3D hidden object games. It seems like you could easily asset flip a lot of things to do that. Of course, maybe that is the problem, is that it's too expensive to buy all those assets, and at the end of the day you are still pretty much just making a hidden object game. Well, I'm about to lose anyway, so
A soldier is a link in the greater chain.
let's see. You can do that. You can evolve that.
You're done for.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Which then can let you kill that
What a drag.
and kill
One
that.
with the lance.
That's hot.
And you still lose. Next we have a game called Eritana and the Twin Masks, which looks like an actual game, playing as what looks like Native American styled characters, which, yeah, you would expect that there would be more adventure games with Native American styled characters, or Native Americans in general. But if anything, maybe that is a previous generation or an after effect of a previous generation of SJW wokeness, is that game developers were unwilling to write a story or animate a character that looked like a Native American, because there's probably approaching 0% of Native Americans in the game development industry. And yeah, that is certainly an idea, is that artists can't this false narrative that artists can't tell a story involving a character that isn't of the exact same race and culture and have the exact same life experience that the creator of the art has, which is just ridiculous. At a certain point, what they're making the argument when they suggest things like that, and these are often suggested by the more extreme elements or suggested in whisper conversations more than outright publicly. But the real argument you're making at that is that you can only tell autobiographies and fiction cannot exist. But that has nothing to do with this game. This game looks interesting, at least interesting enough. $17.99, English and Portuguese, Brazil. So we'll just wait and see if it gets some reviews. This is from a developer who has also made a game called Arianitana and the Harpy's Feather. So there's already been a game in this series, and it got only 21 positive reviews. So I'm going to put that on the wish list and kind of violate my own rules of it being irrelevant because of the fact that they're making a sequel. And I guess at a certain level, that is the only thing you can do, is that if you put something out in 2014 and it has only 20 reviews, but they're positive, double down and make a new game with the same characters. I guess that's all you can really do, is either that or get a publisher, and a lot of people can't afford the publishers. Can't afford a publisher to advertise for them, and that certainly points out an argument towards the idea that publishers still sometimes serve a need, in that maybe you can code a game and program a game and you don't need any funding for that, but you almost certainly don't have enough funding and contacts to advertise a game. Here we have a game that's tagged with sexual content and nudity called Survival of the Amazonia. So you can see it's green like troll-like characters and elf-like characters. And the real game itself is basically an RPG Maker game, although it seems like it might have a little bit more art. If anything, I would say, yeah, this is probably a ogre, troll, or orc. This may be a nymph or a dryad. This could be a human. That would make the most sense. But yeah, this actually doesn't even look like it actually is made with RPG Maker. Of course, then it runs into that same problem of, if it's selling itself on the sexual content and the nudity, it's probably not that good. It also runs into the problem of being $24.99 and supporting English only. Interesting, the actual mature content doesn't even match up with the sexual content and nudity description. There's no depiction of sex in the game, though the clothes the women are wearing might be considered too revealing for a sexual audience. There's no sexual dialogue. So why is it tagged nudity then? Is that something the developers tagged when they released this game on March 10th? Or is that something somebody else tagged? Which that once again just points out the fact that these are user-defined tags, but there are definitely games that have not been seen by anybody and they have tags already applied. Next we have this game called Warmellows, or Warshmellows, which looks like it is a shooting like Smash Brothers style game, player versus player, for $11.99. English full audio, online PvP only, no single player mode at all. Next we have a game called Night Throde, which looks like it's a constant platforming upward game. There was a game like that called Jumpy or something. Seems like there's slightly more to it than that. Seems like you are fighting enemies and having to collect resources. It's kind of the opposite of that game Downwell, not to be confused with Downfall. This is 99 cents, and English and Chinese. Yeah. If anything, for a game where you are just constantly being forced to jump upward, it does seem like it has more of a concept than you would expect. Next, we have a game called Roo the Super Cat, which is like cat kind of platforming game that the concept might have worked, playing as a super cat. A platforming game, not particularly interesting to me, and the screenshots definitely don't look particularly interesting. It's $4.99, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. I'm starting to yawn. Let's see. Zoo Corporation has Pretty Girls Panic Plus, which is just anime girls and you're trying to capture things in boxes. While this is tagged with sexual content, last time I checked, Zoo Corporation really doesn't have any actual sexual content, and it teases like it does. Like, if maybe they've changed their stance on that, though, because there definitely was the Pretty Girls Mahjong that I covered on my channel. Yeah, according to their own description, it does have sexual content and general mature content, so maybe they have uncensored their games. Yeah, and so you're just trying to draw boxes to reveal more of the image without running into the bouncing acorns in this case. It's a very old, very simplistic game.
Different colors,
Let's do that.
great taste.
And then ball.
I have no plans to address flavor. Have a
Have
sip.
to attack that.
I guess I wasn't good enough.
Here we have a game called Quest Escape Room 3,
I've got this.
which looks like
Bring
it's
it.
an RPG Maker game.
Well, I think it tastes
Selling
great.
itself as an escape room game or point and click. That's weird. $2.99 English Russian. There's just too much inconsistency here. I don't trust it, frankly. I think this is a low effort kind of Russian game. Here we have a game called Rangers Hot, which looks like yet another VR game where you are shooting guns. But in all fairness, this actually looks like a decent range where you actually could practice your shooting. Once again, I will say I don't believe in purchasing aim trainers or anything like that. That wouldn't be the reason why I would say potentially purchase or try this game, but this would be great if you want to kind of simulate the experience of a shooting range and maybe even have a relatively accurate recreation of a shooting range. $23.99 is fairly expensive and it's in early access, but I'm going to put this on the follow list. It's single player only and of course would require VR. So without some kind of accessory, you are also going to have a scenario where whatever you're controlling and touching is not likely to be similar to an actual gun.
Not bad.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Blessings of No More, which is tagged as an RPG roguelike. And visually, it just doesn't look that good. 99 cents. English, third-party EULA. There's a real mix between 3D graphics and 2D graphics, which is very, very strange. It might actually be fairly close to the end of the road today, too. Interesting. We have Forza Horizon 4, which is mostly positive, so I can put that on the fall list. Lots of different editions here. An Ultimate Edition for $99.99. Third-party account of Xbox Live. Interesting. This might be a weird case because I don't have a Xbox Live account that I remember the password to. So I would, if I were to get it for Forza Horizon 4, I would be in a weird scenario where I would need to go make a new Xbox Live account. And that would really suck because my old account had like 65,000 gamer score. Not that I care. But yeah, that would be a weird rebooting to play something on Steam. And I guess I've got the network mostly working at this point. I may end up doing some more tweaks, but we haven't seen any major issues. Here is Stronghold Warlords. I think we've already talked about this game. You can see it's already mixed since March 9th. It's $35.99, very expensive. Full audio with most of its languages, but not all, which is interesting. It's a real-time tactics game. Yeah, there just wouldn't be a good reason why the network would be messing up right now, other than just I've hit the point where people start using their internet in my neighborhood. That very well might be the case when you have intermittent speed issues, is that there's just a bunch of your neighbors have decided to start streaming Netflix or things like that. Anyways, we've got a game here called Red Fox and the Four Seasons, which looks like it's a infinite runner platformer. I kind of like the art style, but I kind of hate the gameplay mechanic. So I think I'm going to say no to this. $4.24, English only. Next, we have a game called Raptors of South Edge, which is a mostly black and white text game. It's tagged as a tabletop game, but I think it would be better described as a text game more than anything else. $2.99, English, Portuguese, Brazil. That is just not visually appealing enough. Then we have a game called The Chaos Gene, which is a fighting game. And it's really dark. And that's kind of a problem. Also, a lot of characters with some really big pecs. It's like these pecs in particular look more like female breasts have been modified to look like male pectorals. And yeah, I get the idea that you would want big muscly men and that they've maybe bought some assets and that they're trying to make a fighting game using other characters' animations. I think particularly in a fighting game, asset flipping really doesn't work, though. I think you're going to have custom drawn or custom 3D modeled things. Just doesn't look like it has enough polish. $12.99, English full audio. Also, I just don't feel like there's a competition. See, and if they had used that 2D art that they were showing at the very end there, and all the characters look like that, then you probably would catch my attention more. But these 3D models just make it look horrible. And I can't even really say this is a low effort attempt. It's a high effort attempt that has just failed miserably. Where, yeah, once again, if those were the two characters drawn that way, I would give it more of a chance. Moving on, we have a game called Flipping Cactus, which I believe is kind of a... No, it's more of a Contra clone. I thought it was more of a Super Meat Boy game. We may have already talked about this. It's coming soon though, so English, Russian, Spain, Spanish. So I'll leave it. No reason to put something on the follow list if it doesn't even have a release date yet. Yeah, we have about 5 more tabs. Here we have one called Darkened Glory, which looks kind of like it's attempting to be a Dark Souls arena battler type game, or a fantasy arena battler game. Some of the design kind of feels influenced by Diablo with the health and mana orbs on the edge. But yeah, I don't see any real polish here. $15.99 English full audio. There's inherently an issue where a lot of games in early access are not going to look polished, and I'm going to dismiss them because of that. And I really can't say anything special there. Like, that's kind of, at a certain point, the intended outcome, the system working as well as it's supposed to. Because if somebody is dumb enough to put a ugly looking game on early access and try to sell it, I'm not really happy to do business with them. And that might mean that there are some hidden gems that get overlooked, but the odds of that seem to be astronomical compared to the hundreds upon hundreds of hideous low effort games that get released on Steam. Let's see, we've got some Gematsu articles. Outriders No Turning Back has a trailer, but it's age appropriate, age gated, which that doesn't happen for most trailers. Gloria Union Twin Fates in Blue Ocean FHD edition debut trailer for smartphones and Switch. It's coming out March 18th in Japan. So this feels like a crossover of characters from 2 games. Yeah, and I'm skipping over this trailer since I don't know either one of these games. I'm not very interested. Twin Fates or Blue Ocean. Blue Ocean sounds like something I would somewhat recognize, but that's about it.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Gotta follow my nose.
Let's see. For PC and PS4, the Idolmaster Starlight season has been delayed to October 14th in Japan, no longer coming out May 27th. So we haven't seen a large amount of Japanese game delays, but we kind of haven't seen a large amount of Japanese announcements for a while. Konami has announced a virtual reality band performance game called Beat Arena for Oculus Quest and Oculus Quest 2. Is there a trailer around this? Like, Konami making any game seems kind of crazy at this point. I wonder if Konami perhaps has a lot of relationships with music companies in Japan, and that's why they would want to make a rhythm game where you're playing music. It seems like you can play as the drummer or as a guitar player or as a piano player. Which also kind of makes it feel like you're tripling the amount of work you would have to do. Commander. Let's just
A
do this.
soldier is a link in the greater chain. Be one with the lance. What do we have
Serves me
here?
right.
A game called Lost Words Beyond the Page for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC launches April 6th. Which, do we have a trailer for this one? I don't feel like I've seen this game before. It looks interesting, at least to start with. It might not be much of anything. It feels kind of like it is almost a narrative experience where you're half experiencing what is being narrated in the book and half experiencing the book messing up. I wouldn't be surprised if a game like this is very short. It was a Stadia exclusive, so that might indicate something too. Alright. Kind of have to do this. And then do that.
Be
And
one
then
with
do
the
that.
lance.
Guess I could have evolved and done 2 more damage. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel TV anime project has been announced and is going to air in 2022, which maybe an anime series would help them. I don't know what you do with the Legend of Heroes series, port more games or remaster more games to make it more accessible. Maybe speed up in a remaster some of the grind that I imagine it has. Or maybe the anime series would allow Western players to better understand the story, since some of the games were never ported to the West and the story kind of depends on having knowledge of those games. Anyways, we have a rhythm narrative game called A Musical Story announced for Xbox One, Switch, PC, and iOS. Which, this almost feels like a 70s era characters and 70s era animation. That is one thing while I am playing nudity and sexual content. Yeah, one of the things while I'm playing 70s and 80s and 60s era pinball tables is you look at the artwork of the tables, and there are definitely some art styles that just don't exist nowadays. So it seems like it's a girl. I think that's a girl. And she was lying topless in the snow, so I think she may have been assaulted, is the implication there. But maybe that's a guy, maybe I'm totally wrong, maybe it was just attacked, or who knows. I feel like I may have seen the word Michael Jackson even mentioned here. Says, explore the memories of Gabriel, a young man trying to come to terms with his situation through the connection to his musical memory. Each correctly played melody opens a new chapter into Gabriel's past, bringing him closer to the truth. No, I guess it doesn't say Michael Jackson anywhere. There, I must have skimmed it wrong and thought I saw it and didn't. Do we need another victory? Yes. But unless I was to get a quick victory, I'm not going to get it. I'll have to do it off screen. And then a game called Turbo Kid has been announced, which from the looks of it, it kind of feels like an Excite bike clone. I feel like there was a low budget movie called Turbo Kid that was very much looked like this. And I don't even know if Turbo Kid really was a fairly low budget movie, or if it was just designed to look like a low budget movie. But yeah, I definitely saw a movie called Turbo Kid, and it definitely looked like this. And yeah, it looks like this is going to be somewhat of a platformer. Weird. It's a weird thing that they're saying it's a Metroidvania. I would not have expected that. It's a real weird thing though to have a game come out that is based off an indie movie that you know very few people saw. It's not a terrible idea though. Like, get the writing done first and make something stationary in an indie movie, and then if that makes you enough money, make a video game interactive version of it. Since video games at this point supersede movies, having movies, and particularly indie movies, be a test bed for ideas, concepts, and storylines, not a terrible idea. Much in the same way that manga is the test bed for a lot of anime, or at least sometimes that's the way it goes. Although arguably you could test the same idea out 2 or 3 times in the West and have a comic book based on Turbo Kid, and then have that comic book, if it succeeds, get turned into either a Netflix series or a movie, and then have it turned into a video game. But people probably would be tired of that story by the 3rd time it had been re-released. We have seen that happen with several comic books actually getting turned into Netflix series. In a funny way, Netflix still is acting like they are going to be the end all of that flow of concepts, and that video games will get turned into Netflix series, and books and comic books will get turned into Netflix series, and Netflix may even release a few of their movies and series outside of their own streaming service. But yeah, I would more than likely assume that Netflix is actually a middle step, not the final step. Finally, we have a game on Steam called Romeo Must Live, which is tagged as a dating sim with nudity and not safe for work content, although I'm not really seeing it. Does just look like a visual novel for $6.99, English only. And that does put me at the end. So now it's just a matter of let's see. That was pointless. I guess that means I just need to reload my Twitter feed, and we'll see if anything new has happened. So yeah, we did not get all the daily quests done. I don't think we opened a pack today either. So let's do that, and then we'll wrap up. Apparently today is the 20th anniversary of the original Gothic, which Steam THQ Nordic has put out a page for the Gothic remake that they announced basically a week ago. Let's see. A retro developer named Audacity Games has released its first new Atari 2600 game, Circus Convoy. The idea of being a retro developer, it sounds insane. Alright, well, let's buy one pack. We still are like 114 packs away from getting to where we need to get for tradables. So next time there's an expansion, which I suspect it won't be too far off, I am going to have to probably dump. I mean, I could still only open like 50 packs right now, so it seems crazy how far we are from hitting that level and just how much redundancy is required. How many of the same cards do you have to end up collecting before you can start trading the top tier cards? But in all fairness, most other collectible card games don't have that concept of tradables at all. Apparently, a documentary short called Colette, Colette, has been nominated for an Academy Award, and it was shot for Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, which that's interesting, I guess. See. Still scrolling down. Fortnite's getting its own Joy-Con bundle that includes V-Bucks and bonus items for the Switch. The ESA has a Women's History Month article. Man, I am sleepier than I thought. Good thing I did not start streaming at right now, because I would probably have been very close to falling asleep if that was the case. Alright, now let me check the Humble Bundle. I believe there is a new Humble Bundle today. Nope. Still just the Stellaris bundle. So here's the Gothic remake on Steam, which it looks just like a fantasy game at the moment. It's coming soon, it says. Yeah, I could easily get confused though and end up thinking Gothic 1 Remake is just a terrible game of no real interest. Let's see. Playable teaser of Gothic was released in December of 2019. I assume that's a playable teaser of the remake. So they have been working on it longer than I thought. And THQ Nordic publishes so many things that at a certain point they need to break it back down to Embracer Group on their Steam storefront. Here's Gothic 3 Gold Edition from 2005, so they basically have several Gothic games that are old enough to justify re-releases or remasters. You think that is probably true for a lot of their games. In fact, with the exception of Carmageddon. Gothic 1 is a 2001 game that is very positive. Reviewed, but does also look like total garbage as a classic RPG. And so you can definitely see why this wouldn't be on the fall list or the wish list, as it's just so incredibly old. But for a 10-year-old game, you might find that the remake is fairly short if it's just going to have the same content and same story. Here we have a game called Deserted, which looks like it's some kind of... It's tagged as an RPG. I'd almost call it a top-down twin-stick shooter. Early access 1999, third-party EULA, English full audio. Alright, I'm going to put this on the follow list and give it a chance. Here's that game, Circus Convoy, and you can see it definitely looks like an Atari 2600 game. Which is to really say you couldn't do too much on an Atari 2600, even with modern programming techniques. So this is far too retro, even for my liking. Seems really ridiculous. Paradox Interactive has decided to release some content for Xbox gamers. So like Northern Lords Flavor Pack, Crusader Kings 3, Surviving Mars, Empire of Sin, Stellaris Console Edition. I thought there would be something else here. I guess this is City Skylines, and that wasn't getting mentioned, or Surviving Mars. A lot of these Paradox Interactive games are recognizable, but they're also kind of recognizable as games that I didn't really want to play. So they kind of just have a weird combination of games they're offering. Here is the Tech Raptor article of Fortnite Joy-Cons. So you've got different kinds of Joy-Cons. I think all of the hardware on Joy-Cons are still made by Nintendo, pretty much, if it's an official Nintendo product. So these probably still are very susceptible to drift and other problems Joy-Cons have had. This is all in-game content, so you get a glider and what looks like a couple lightsabers and 500 V-Bucks. So they're selling this to kids to get them into the microtransaction concept, which seems sleazy to say the least. And then here's the ESA celebrating Women's History Month. So women in video game history. So you have a Sarah Bond who's the corporate vice president of gaming at Microsoft. I have never heard of her. I don't know if corporate vice president is different than just the vice president of gaming, but that seems kind of crazy that she would just not be more to the forefront. You have Jade Raymond, which is a video game producer. She served as the vice president at Google, where she led Google Studios and Stadia, and basically Stadia was a huge failure, very possibly not because of her, but because of Google. In fact, there's probably quite a few scenarios here where women have been very well given the shaft in the gaming industry and left holding the bag. But then there, by the third person here, you're at Kimberly Bryant, the founder of Black Girls Code, who I don't know if there's any kind of thing behind her resume at all that would actually even say she is in the video game industry. So you've got two people you can mention, and then you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, and then you're literally digging up the dead when you're talking about Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper, who was a big factor in computers in general, but she was in a time definitely well before gaming really was a thing. I'd be interested to know if she even lived long enough to see Pong come out, let alone. And then you have like Kel Shaw. We've seen and heard about her too, working at Atari. Atari was about the most egalitarian hiring company out there, and once it got acquired by Warner Brothers, they changed the corporate structure and pretty much ended up making it a boys club. There you go. Bonnie Ross, a video game developer and head of 343 Industries. Again, someone I don't recognize. Although in all fairness, I probably wouldn't recognize very few men that worked in video game design either. I would first name that comes to my head as far as a video game programmer is Gabe Newell, who I don't know if he ever programmed a video game at all. And then like Cliff Basinski, who's not in video game design anymore, I don't think, is the second name I can think of. And then at that point, I really am out of ideas. Like, there are definitely some higher level managers at Microsoft I might recognize the names of, but that's about it. Then we have J.N. Lopez, who founds Black Girl Gamers. Again, I don't know if she's ever actually worked in the game industry. And then Ashley Burch is the voice actress and actor and writer, which, at the very least, in this case, even though she's not a programmer, she is a voice actress who's played Tiny Tina and other characters. It seems like it would be a lot easier to name several other voice actresses that had to have existed. You just have to assume that there was more than one female voice actress who's been in video games. And yet they don't list that. ESA being very, very picky about who they're highlighting and very kind of off the wall as far as who they're highlighting. If anything, it might make more sense to highlight new employees or new women to the industry, like every month, instead of just Women's History Month. Every month saying we've got these new hires and new women coming to the industry, or new people of color coming to the industry, or just new hires coming to the industry in general. That would be fairly cool if you got a job as a entry-level programmer at a place like Gearbox, to pick a random company, and they just immediately sent your name off to the ESA, and the ESA sent you a nice little letter saying, congratulations on entering the game industry, where we've highlighted you. This is something that could be on your resume. This is something people can, you should be proud of. But there probably are some privacy concerns around that idea too. Well, anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.